Hello, everyone. My name is Kelly Pierre, reporting for African American Golfers Digest. Right now, I have with me is Jimmie James. So, Jimmie James, if you just mind, just telling us a little bit about yourself.
I can tell you, it's a wide range. I'm almost 62 years old, and I
Uh,
remember all but about two of those 62 years. So very happy to talk about any particular aspect um, of those 60 years that you'd like to talk about.
if you don't know, Jimmy, he actually accomplished a major feat of playing 100 courses in a year. And prior to that, he was an exec at ExxonMobil. So just to start off, can you tell us about your early childhood growing up?
I was born in East Texas, in a shack, pretty much, a tin roofed shack. No electricity, plumbing,
Mhm.
none of the things that we take for granted today. It was in a world that really lacked almost everything that we would take for granted. I went on to become, at 5 years old, looking around at the world in which I lived, I knew that there had to be a better life somewhere.
Uh,
So I made a goal. I set a goal for myself to become the first person that I knew to graduate from high school.
mm,
Um, Obviously, 13 years later, when I graduated from high school, I met other people. But at the age of 5, there was no one that in my small world, that I knew that had graduated from high school. But I did. I went on to college. I graduated from Prairie View A&M University, HBCU in Texas, just northwest of Houston by about 45 minutes or so. And upon graduating from college with a degree in civil engineering, I went to work for Exxon there in Texas, just outside of Houston in Baytown. I spent then 33 years with Exxon, moving from the ranks of an engineer through supervisory positions, management positions, manager positions, and then into several executive positions before I retired 3.5 years ago.
nice. During your career, when did you start playing golf?
It was later in my career. I was 45 years old. I was working in what was at the time one of our headquarters locations in Fairfax, Virginia, just outside of Washington, D.C.
Mhm.
And at dinner one evening with the vice president of the division that one of the vice presidents of the division that I was working in, over dinner said, "Jimmy, you're going back to Texas." And these may not be his exact words, but it was something around, uh, you're going back to Texas.
Mhm.
Uh, and in order to get along with the folks that you'll be working with there, you're going to need to start shooting something. And he says, he said, you can shoot par or you can shoot animals. It's up to
Oh,
you, but pick one.
yeah, yeah.
my wife, uh, my wife went out and purchased a set of golf clubs. So
Uh,
I think she made the decision for me. And at the time, so she was teaching at the University of Virginia in Charlottesville
mhm.
at the time. So when I went to Texas, I actually commuted between Texas and Virginia. So during my time in Texas, when I wasn't working, I had quite a bit of free time.
Mhm.
So the first year, so she purchased a set of golf clubs and also purchased a, um, a set of 5 lessons
Mhm.
from a place, and she did her research, found a place in Beaumont, Texas, where I could take golf lessons.
Mhm.
Um, and the first year in Beaumont, I really focused just completely on work. But just after a year had passed, just before those lessons were about to expire, I started taking golf lessons.
Mhm.
Uh, and that's how I started to play golf. What was interesting is initially it was just really hard just to hit the ball, just to connect
Right.
with the ball. I swung and uh, missed
Which,
completely a few
yeah.
times, but
Uh,
the guy's name was Don, and he said, "Okay, let's start over here. Let's talk about how to grip the club."
yeah.
and and so he adjusted my hand on how to grip the club, and
Mhm.
then he stood in front of me and he held my head in place, and he said, "Now swing and rotate around your spine."
Mhm.
And I did that, keep it without my head going back or swaying or up or down.
Mhm.
And I contacted the ball and it soared off into the night sky. I
Uh-huh.
was hooked. I was hooked.
Uh,
I just thought that was so amazing
uh-huh.
that that I could hit the ball and watch it soar into the sky.
Yeah.
Uh, as long as he held my head and I made that swing, it was fine. But then it
Mhm.
got a little harder when my head wasn't being held in place. But that's how I started playing golf. And then I the first time I got on a golf course was really it was a municipal course
Mhm.
there in Beaumont. There's a park, Terrell Park,
Uh-huh.
and the Henry Humberg golf course. It's more like a cow pasture uh,
Wow.
with it's a course. It has 18 holes in all, but
Uh-huh.
it's a long way from being the manicured, having manicured conditions.
Mm.
And this is that part of Texas where the soil is this really clay. And when it doesn't rain, that clay gets really hard. So you could hit a 200-yard, 220-yard drive,
Uh-huh.
and the ball will roll another 100 yards. The
Oh,
ground is so
yeah.
hard.
Right.
But that's where I first my first round uh, of golf was there at Henry Humberg. Um, and so it started from there. I was, like I said, I was 45 years old,
Mhm.
and uh, I started from that point on a municipal course.
Wow. That's pretty amazing. While you're learning the game, have you seen the benefits professionally playing the game? Like, were you able to connect with new people professionally, or just be able to have meetings on the course? Since it was mentioned by the vice president.
So initially, there's a coworker.
Hmm.
We had worked together at a few other places,
Hmm.
and both of us were pretty competitive individual. So
Hmm.
we really didn't get along very well at the two previous places
Uh-huh.
we met. We played in a basketball league at one of them, and we were on different teams and really going at each other and very competitive.
Yeah.
And then that was in Baytown, Texas, early in our career.
Hmm.
Um, then we worked as managers together in a location in Louisiana, in Baton Rouge, Louisiana.
Hmm.
And there was less tension because we matured a little bit more, but there
Hmm.
was still some tension. And then we were on the leadership team together in Beaumont. So we were peers on the leadership team and had to work together.
Hmm.
And we were both taking up golf at the same time.
Mm.
And we bonded around golf and built a really strong friendship.
Uh-huh.
That friendship that we formed on the golf course, the camaraderie of playing golf together and struggling through learning the game together,
Mm.
um, forged the way for us to also work much better together when we're at work.
Wow.
Early on in playing, it was that, and then the organization, you have professionals and you have the the wage employees.
Hmm.
And the wage employees and professionals, we play golf together. And
Hmm.
that would also, on the golf course, in the work environment, there's a hierarchy, there's an organization chart, and the managers are at the top of the chart,
Right.
and then you have the workers below that. On a
Yeah.
golf course, there's no hierarchy of that. It's
Mm.
all about playing golf. So that was a way, and that's what the vice president was more focused on, was just being able to relate to the people that I would be leading
Mm.
outside the work environment, and complement the trust that you build within the work environment by being outside the work environment and interacting with each other.
Wow.
So I think golf plays a role in that. And there's something about golf, and I'll probably say this multiple times from different perspectives, but there's just something about getting out on a golf course with people and interacting, even if they're strangers, uh, where a common passion, the heat of a common passion for golf
Mm-hmm.
seems to melt away any differences. And there's this sort of magical camaraderie that forms when you struggle together chasing that little ball
Right.
around 18 holes.
Right.
And so that's it. It really is. It really is something special and magical, that common passion for golf. Because if you're out there playing golf, the game's so hard, you really have to have a passion for it.
Right.
It's not something that if you don't really like it, you're going to do, because it's just too frustrating
Right.
to put up with it, and it's a long time. There are not many things that you would do for 4 hours,
True. True. True.
and you're on a golf course generally for 4 hours. Um, so you have to have this passion about it. So there's that common passion, I think, uh, helps build bridges and bonds and camaraderie.
So now you're really getting into the game, and like you're approaching retirement, right? And then tell me how the thought came about to play the top 100 golf courses in the nation.
Work had been pretty intense
Hmm.
for my entire career. I mean, I worked probably on average, 70 plus hours a week. Even my last day of work, when I did get to retirement, I
Yeah.
got to work at 7 that morning
Hmm.
and left at 7 at night on my last day.
Wow.
So it's work was intense.
Uh-huh.
It was intense. So I needed to decompress. I wanted to reconnect with our country,
Hmm.
sort of reconnect with the country, get a sense of the real feel of the country. Was America still a place where people help you achieve your dreams? Growing up in poverty and being able to achieve the dream of graduating from high school, going to college, having a career. Were we still a country where, and I couldn't do that by myself, obviously. There were people that were very supportive and helpful along the way.
Hmm.
Um, and I wanted to see if our country was still a country where people would sort of help, where people still cared about other people, even strangers.
Hmm.
So initially, I was planning to play golf, to travel to all 50 states,
Uh-huh.
play 2 rounds of golf in each state. One, if I knew people in the state, one
Hmm.
round with people, with friends,
Hmm.
and then another round with strangers. I
Mm.
had had this really great experience the first time I went to St. Andrews in
Okay.
Scotland.
All
So
right.
I'd been playing golf. I'd been playing golf for about 3 years. A friend and I planned the trip to St. Andrews, well, to Scotland, to play golf. He was actually working in England. It's the same
Oh.
friend that
Uh-huh.
I had worked with, that had learned the game with and bonded with in
Really?
Beaumont. He was working.
Wow.
He was working in England,
Yeah.
and uh, and I was working in Virginia, like back in Virginia again. And so we decided to meet up in Scotland to
Mm.
play golf in Scotland, including at the O course.
Hmm.
A couple of days before I was supposed to head out, he had a significant incident at the facility that he was in charge of and had to cancel. And my wife and I talked about it, and she said, "You should still go." So I went,
Uh-huh.
and I'm in Scotland by myself playing golf. In the first, so at St. Andrews, to play St. Andrews, they have a lottery the day before. So you put your
Okay.
name in the lottery the day before, and
Hmm.
that night list out who got chosen from the lottery to play the course.
Mm-hmm.
I did that. I didn't get chosen in the lottery,
Mm-hmm.
but someone said to me, said, "Hey, you won't have any trouble playing at all because you're here as a single. It's easy to go out as a single because there will be other groups that only have 2 or 3 people in them. And so you should show up tomorrow morning around 5 o'clock or so early
Uh-huh.
and talk to the starter, get in line, talk to the starter, and he'll fit you in." And
Mm-hmm.
sure enough, that occurred. I went out with the very first group.
Wow.
Uh, there was a long line, but because I was by myself, I was for there were 3
He
guys
fit you in.
who a friend was supposed to play with them, canceled. They were locals, 3 locals.
Mm.
They were from there in St. Andrews, and
Uh-huh.
so I joined these 3 locals. We played a match. I paired with one of them, and the other 2 played against us. It was
Yeah.
great fun. Uh, Turned out that they were guys that worked in the oil industry. One of them actually worked for our affiliate in Scotland.
Uh-huh.
And the guy I played with, we won the round.
Uh-huh.
And afterwards, they took me to their clubs. In Scotland, it's different from here in the US, where you have a country club and golf course that are all a part of the
They-
same entity.
Yeah.
There, you have a golf course, and there are clubs that are not a part of the course. They just associate with the course. So you have the St. Andrews Club, the new St. Andrews Club.
Uh-huh.
Lots of history, going way back. Lots of history.
Yeah.
So they took me to their club, gave me tours, and we had lunch at one of the clubs. It was just the most um, unimaginably great experience that one could have. I could not have imagined a greater experience than what I had there. So that's where this idea of, playing with strangers, getting to know new people came from.
Yeah.
So anyway, fast forward, we're back here. My that was my plan. I'm going to travel the country, play golf courses across the country. My retirement was at the end of May.
Mm-hmm.
So 6 months before retirement, at Christmas, my wife gave me a book by a guy who had played the top 100 courses in the world, but it took him like 15, 20 years to do it. So it gave me a thought. I said, well, if I'm going to play 100 courses, why not see if I'm able to get on the top 100 courses in the US? To see if I could travel across the country, meeting people, and without asking, get invitations to play the top courses in the country.
Uh-huh.
And I said, I bet no one's ever played all 100 in a year. So I did research, and I couldn't find where anyone had played all the courses in a year. There were a few people that I found had played it, but it had taken them decades,
Wow.
almost their lifetime to do it. But so I said, that's what I'm going to do. And I didn't plan it out ahead of time. The only plan was my wife had already gotten me an invitation to play at Augusta National. So
And
that was,
that's
and she
pretty
had gotten
tough.
that, right. She had gotten the invitation before I even thought about playing the top 100 courses. So
Wow.
it was just going to be an invitation to play at Augusta National. When we moved from Virginia to Atlanta, she mentioned to her board that I was supporting her career. I'd moved down, and she'd really appreciate it if any of them had any connections to Augusta that could get me an invite to Augusta. And one of them did. And so it had nothing to do with playing the top 100 courses, but since I had already had gotten the invitation to what was supposed to be probably the most difficult course to get on, it made sense to also play it first. So that's how I got to the point of, I'm going to play the 100 best, the top 100 in the country. And I played Augusta National first. I figured that would give me some street credibility, because if I said to people, I'm going to play the top 100 courses in a year, I knew the first question I'd probably get would be, Well,
Augusta.
how are you going to get on Augusta?
Right.
Being able to say that I played it first would probably open the door for lots of other courses,
Hmm.
and for people inviting me to lots of other courses. And that is, of course, what happened is I played it first, and it it really reduced the challenge, I think, of the difficulty of getting invitations to other courses, and um, it it helped people believe that I could actually do it,
Hmm.
that I could actually play all one. If I'd gotten on Augusta, then I could probably figure out how to get on
Yeah.
the other
Pebble
99.
Beach.
Yeah, so 87 of the courses are private.
Uh-huh.
12 of the courses are on the list for that year were resort courses, and then
Mm.
one public course. The one public course
Beth
is
Page.
Bethpage, right? And then the resort courses are courses like, Pebble Beach and Spyglass.
Right.
Uh, they're in Monterey, and you have the ocean course at Kiowa, which is the very first top 100 course I'd ever played in my life, and the very first time I played it not long after learning golf.
Oh,
And
okay.
it was the very first course I'd ever played that was of that caliber, and the very first course I ever played with the caddy. And I had planned for it to be my 100th course, since it's a home course for me. We
Yeah.
have a place down in Kiowa, so it's a home course for me. But that wasn't possible. Um, and I can tell you about that later, but why I couldn't play it as the 100. There was another course that I could only play until on the first opportunity to play it was the
Uh-huh.
very last day of my 365 days.
Oh.
So I played the ocean courses 99, and
Mm.
I had as my caddy the same caddy I had the very first time I played the course.
Wow.
So that was that was fun. But you've Whistling Straits,
Yeah.
Erin Hills. Those are the TPC Sawgrass. Those are the courses as resort. And the other 87 that are private, of course,
Mhm.
you have to get invites. Some of them my club could actually arrange for me to play. Being a member of a country club, the head pro at your club, for some of the clubs that allow unaccompanied play, and that's only a few of them that do, but for
Uh-huh.
the clubs that allow unaccompanied play, if your head pro has a relationship with them, he could call over and talk to their head pro and see if he could arrange it. But most of the courses you have to be either play with a member or be sponsored by a member. Most of that 87.
Wow.
So that's, yeah.
Oh.
So but that's that, again, as you asked about the idea, that's how where the idea came from, and that
Mhm.
was the intent, was to, without telling people that I was trying to see if our country was still a country where strangers, where people just helped other people with something because it's a dream of theirs.
Mm.
I told people I wanted to play the top 100 courses in the year,
Uh-huh.
that I was playing the top 100 courses in a year, but I didn't explain that I was also sort of getting a sense of our country, and how, whether the kindness and generosity um,
Yeah.
existed, where
Uh-huh.
people would just help you because you have a dream and they want to help you achieve the dream.
Mm. Wow. So since you played Augusta first, right?
Mhm.
How that par three.
So the Augusta is really nice.
Uh-huh.
The condition of it is just perfect. Everything is pristine,
Yeah.
and there's this mystique about Augusta.
Hmm.
There's all this history. So in terms, though, of a great course, there are a lot of courses I think that are uh, better courses than Augusta. So Augusta isn't necessarily just about the course; it's
Hmm.
about the experience of being at Augusta.
Uh,
The exception I say to that is, I think every avid golfer dreams of playing Amen Corner.
right.
And so, that's the uh, 11, 11, 12, and
Yeah.
13. 13 is the par 5. 11's a par 4
Yeah.
with downhill approach shot to a green with water off to the left of the green. And
Uh-huh.
so my playing Amen Corner, I playing 11, hit a great drive,
Uh-huh.
and my approach shot landed on the green, just on the edge of the green on the right. And I chipped up, I think, and missed my one putt, my 4-foot putt or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I made a bogey on the hole. And then 12, the challenge, everybody talks about the wind. You don't know what the wind is doing, but what really makes that par 3 challenging, it's not a long par 3, it's 150 yards, even
Right.
when the pros are playing. So
Yeah.
it's a 150-yard hole over water, Rays Creek.
Right.
The real challenge is the green is only 10 yards deep. So if you're 5 yards short, you're in Rays Creek.
Mm.
If you're a little less than 5 yards short, you could be in
Bunker.
bunker on the left, depends upon which line you choose. If you're 5 yards long from the middle of the green, you are in the back bunker.
Right.
And now you've got to hit a sand shot back toward Rays Creek.
Yeah.
So we're standing there. My caddy was a guy named Eddie.
Uh-huh.
And so we're standing there. And Eddie tells me that I should hit a 6-iron, which at the time was a 160-yard club. It's now like a 170-yard club for me.
Mm.
But I got better at playing 100 courses in a
Yeah.
year. But at the time, my 6-iron was a 160-yard club. And I said to him, I think my 7 would be better. And he said the things, caddies say when they want you to hit a longer club, there's a little wind into you. and so I hit my 6-iron
Uh-huh.
instead of my 7-iron. My 6-iron, my 160-yard club,
Yeah.
flew over the flag and went 160 yards.
Oh, wow.
Which means it ended up in that back bunker. So my 160-yard club actually went 160 yards.
Yeah.
Which is unfortunate. Now I'm in that back bunker and I have to hit a sand shot out of the bunker. And I'm just thinking about that rolling off and into Rays Creek. So
Right.
I actually hit out of the bunker to the right where there's some land. So if I went long, it would roll off the green on the right there, and I could chip back on and putt to try to save bogey. So that's what I did, except for I ended up missing my 3-foot putt for bogey and made a double. And then on you get to 13, great drive, and I'm like 235 yards or so out.
Yeah.
So my caddy says, "What do you want to lay up to?" And I'm like, "Lay up? I may never get to Augusta again and have the opportunity to go for the green in 2 on this short par 5. But I have my 3-wood, please."
Yeah.
And he sort of looked at me, and but I took it. I hit the 3-wood very poorly. I actually sort of hit it off to the right, and there's this space where the 14th fairway and the 13th fairway sort of come together. The ball rolled off into that area, and so now I'm only a few yards from a pitch shot over Rays Creek to the green, and so I pitch over the creek to the green to maybe 10 feet or something, and so now I still have a chance for birdie. My caddy's like, "Okay, you need to concentrate on this. Let's get your birdie." And the ball was going, he gave me a great read. It was tracking for the hole and stopped just short of the hole.
Wow.
So I ended up parring that hole.
Yeah.
But that was a lot of fun. Amen Corner was a lot of fun.
Nice.
I think that's the best part of the course to play.
So what significant event like stuck out to you the most?
So I'll talk about some of those, but you mentioned that it's a lot of that 100 courses is a lot of courses. To give you an idea of how many courses 100 courses
Uh-huh.
are, so I was going along great. I thought I was doing really, really well.
Hmm.
Uh, I'd gotten to um, uh, October,
Hmm.
um, and it was actually in the September, and I was on a really great pace,
Hmm.
and I was playing my 34th course. So playing on the sixth hole, a par three, at Plainfield Country Club in New Jersey.
Hmm.
And it occurred to me that when I finish this hole, I will be 1/3 of the way through.
Uh-huh.
And I said to my caddy, I need to birdie this hole. I think my caddy was a kid named Matt. And I said, I need to birdie this hole.
Uh-huh.
Um, Hit a great tee shot, but missed my birdie,
Mm.
but made par. And then I felt really great. I'm 1/3 of the way finished. I've played 33 and a third courses.
Yeah.
And then it occurred to me that as much work as I had done, as much travel as I had done, flying and driving and all the work to meet people, to get invitations and get on these courses,
Yeah.
I still had twice as many courses left as I had done. That put a big weight on my shoulder.
Uh-huh.
I'm now saying, boy, is this really possible? Have I bitten off more than I can chew? Have I given myself a goal greater than what I could achieve?
Mm-hmm.
This is so all of a sudden, the burden of it all sort of hit me. I've told
Yeah.
all these people that so far that I'm going to play the top 100 courses in a year, but that's 100 courses. That's really a lot. It was
Yeah.
overwhelming.
Uh-huh.
Um, so some of the other stories, to get to your question, some of the stories, some great stories. I'll tell some of the stories of playing the courses, and some about how I got on some of the courses that I think were just um, extraordinarily kind um, uh, gestures by people.
Uh-huh.
Uh, in terms of playing, one of my most memorable shots was I was on the 13th hole at Bandon Trails. I'd played Bandon Dunes and Pacific Dunes uh, the day before. They're along the coast,
Uh-huh.
a little inland from the coast, and sort of the wilderness is Bandon Trails. Um, I sort of pushed my drive to the right,
Mm-hmm.
and I was behind some trees. And my caddy, this kid named Thomas, young kid, all about 5'5", golf. He'd never played golf, but he was caddying so that he could get a scholarship through this program called the Chick Evans Scholars Program. Kids that caddied were
Mm-hmm.
eligible.
Mm.
So anyway, so that's why he caddied, but he'd never played golf.
Uh-huh.
So I hit my drive, sort of push it to the right, and I'm behind these trees, and he's telling me to chip out, but I notice a small
Window.
opening,
Yeah.
a small window, very small window,
Yeah.
probably, I don't know, 2 or 3 feet by 2 or 3 feet by 2 or 3 feet.
Uh-huh.
So I said, Thomas, you see that hole up there? That's at the exact launch angle of a pitching wedge. And the hole's 123 yards away.
Right.
And my pitching wedge was like a 120-yard club for me.
Yeah.
And at the time, now it's 130 yards. So I got
Uh,
one extra length on my clubs now. But anyway,
yeah.
and so Thomas is looking at me like I'm crazy.
Uh,
I just missed this huge fairway. Now I want to hit a ball through this little opening
right,
in
right.
the tree. He was like, Mr. James, I think you should pitch out. I said, no,
Uh-huh.
I got this. So I said, this ball, if I get it through that opening, it has to land and roll right next to the flag.
Mm-hmm.
And so put my head down, concentrate, focus, take a really smooth swing. and I lift my head up just in time to see it going through the trees, going through that opening in
Yeah,
the
that
trees,
window, right,
that
right,
little window. And so I said to Thomas, and Thomas is just standing there with his eyes wide open, like just aghast at how could he possibly do that? He actually
right.
did it. He
Yeah.
actually hit it through that opening. And I look at him and I say, that has to be next to the flag.
Hmm.
Just the physics of it all. It has to be next to the flag.
Yeah.
And sure enough, the ball was 3 feet to the left of the flag. Easy
Wow.
birdie. So that was, you know, I had some really bad shots, but I had some really great shots, but that was my most memorable one. In terms of encounters, one of the first was I was playing at, preparing to play at Marion.
Hmm.
My host for Marion called me just as I was getting to the club and said, "Hey, Jimmie, I've been delayed. I've had a business issue come up this morning." Marion has 2 courses. They have the East course, which is the championship course, and then they have the West course. So the East course is the one that's ranked in the top 10 of the top 100. I'm sorry, they have a second course, the West
Yeah.
course. We were going to play the West course in the morning and then play the East course in the afternoon. He says, we're probably not going to be able, he says, I'm not going to get there in time for us to play the West course and then make our tee time for the East course. So we'll probably end up just playing the East course. He said, while you're waiting on me, why don't you just go over to we've got a great practice facility in a great short game area. You could go over and hang out at the practice facility until I'm able to get there. And then, well, when I get there, we'll just have some lunch and then, you know, go out and play the East course. While I was there on the course, on the short game, there was a guy there. I struck up a conversation with him, John Sokol. Ended up being his name, but we struck up a conversation. Then he asked me, he says, you played here before? I said, no, first time. How about you? And he said, I purchased this in an auction, and I brought some friends here to play. And he said, how did you
he brought the course?
He purchased in an auction. There was a foursome auction off for Marion. And so he purchased the in an auction a certificate to play, to bring a foursome to Marion. And he said, so what really brings you here to play then, since it's your first time? I said, well, I am just retired a few months ago, and I'm set a goal to play the top 100 courses in the country in a year. He said, that's stupid. You should have talked to me first. I would have told you that bottom 50 is not worth it. Just play the top 50. The bottom 50 is not worth it. That's too much travel in a year to try to play the 100 courses. And those bottom 50 aren't worth you doing all that travel. He said, but since you're doing such an idiotic thing, I'm going to help. He says, I'm going to help you. He says, I live in Columbus, Ohio. There are 4 top 100 courses in Columbus, and I belong to all of them. So I'll invite you. He says, I'll invite you to Columbus to come play the courses. And I said, wow, great. Yeah. That was just nice and generous, just having a casual conversation. We hadn't even exchanged names, actually. And then he goes, now it won't be on a Saturday, because he said, I'll invite you in September, but it won't be on a Saturday because that's Ohio State football. And I go, uh-oh. I said, as much as I want to play these courses, I'm transparent, honest on all this stuff. So I need to let you know that my household is a big blue household. My wife has her PhD from the University of Michigan. And if that's going to be a problem for you, then you should let me know now. So he goes, yeah, I knew you were stupid. Turns like he's going to walk away. Like he's going to walk away. And about midway through the turn, he turns back and said, yeah, but that's why you need help. So what's your name anyway? He says, what's your name anyway? Give me your email, and and your cell number, and I'll contact you in September. And sure enough, he did.
Wow.
So that was that worked out, just this serendipitous encounter with a stranger that ended up leading to 4 courses, the 4 courses there. And it actually, that encounter accounted for 6 of the courses I played, because he helped me with 4. And then people he arranged for other people to host me. He hosted me at Muirfield Village, and he arranged for friends of his that for members, co-members at the other clubs, to host me at the other clubs. And 2 of those guys ended up helping me with 1 club each. So that encounter at Marion ended up getting me on to 6 courses.
Yeah.
The other one that's somewhat unique was I was getting near the end. I had 29 courses, 35 days to play them. The courses were stretched across New York, New Jersey, Illinois, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Idaho. So I had to get to all of those 29 courses spread across those states in just 35 days. Most of them were in New York. So I left to go to New York to play. I played the 2 courses at Wingfoot. Both courses at Wingfoot are in the top 100. But they were doing renovations on them. So I played a hybrid. I played holes on each course. So I played a total of 19 holes, and it was a combination of holes on each course. The 10 holes on, I think, the east, and 9 on the west. But when I finished, my caddy was the first female caddy that I'd had, and she was from Scotland, Donnie Hines. And Donnie asked me where was I going next. I said, well, I'm going to drive out to the Hamptons, because I have all the courses out at the Hamptons, to play National, Maidstone, National Golf Links of America, Maidstone, Sabonic, Friars Head. And Shinnecock is out there, but I wasn't playing that on that trip. So I had those 4 to go out there to play. She said, you shouldn't really. I said, so I'm going to drive out to the Hamptons. She says, oh, it's rush hour. You don't want to make that drive all the way out there. It's going to take you, the traffic is stressful, and it's going to be a long drive. She said, what you should do is take the ferry, drive to Bridgeport, Connecticut, catch the ferry across the Sound to Port Jefferson, and then drive out to the Hamptons. She said, it's going to take you the same time because the ferry is slower, but at least on the ferry, you can relax, you can have dinner. And so that's the way I decided to go, which changed my route leaving the club. As I was leaving the club, I took a turn on this street called Griffith Street. And I noticed across the street from Shinnecock, Griffith turns out it runs in between in between Wingfoot and Quaker Ridge, which is another top 100 course in New York that I needed to play. So I'm driving on Griffith, and I wasn't able to arrange to play Quaker because the guy that was going to host me was out of the country. And so I was going to probably have to come back to New York if I couldn't find someone while I was in New York on this trip that could host me. And I only had 1 day available, that Saturday. This was a Wednesday. My only opening would be that Saturday. So I had to find someone who could host me on that Saturday. And so I'm driving down Griffith, and I see this guy standing next to a truck with a cracked windshield, yelling at these 3 other guys in golf attire. So I pull over to the side of the road, and I just watch. And then the guy gets in his truck, and I thought he was about to drive off.
Mm-hmm.
Turns out he was just moving the truck to the side of the road. But when he got in the truck to drive off
Yeah.
and started driving off, I walked up to the other guys and I said, it looks like something terrible has happened here today. But
Mm-hmm.
you know, there's always, in every dark cloud, there's always a silver lining.
Mm-hmm.
He said, I want to be your silver lining in this
Uh,
dark cloud.
uh,
I said, you see that course? And I pointed at Quaker Ridge, that course you guys are playing on.
uh,
I need to play that course
uh,
on Saturday. I said, I'm trying to play the top 100 courses in a year. I've now gotten down to 27 courses because I just played 2 more. I said,
uh-huh.
I've got 34 days to get the remaining 27 courses.
Uh-huh.
And if I can't play Quaker Ridge on this trip to New York, I'm going to have to try to figure out how to get back to New York
Mm-hmm.
with the time running out. And that's going to be hard. I don't know if I'm going to be able to make it. I really need to play that course on Saturday. So one
Uh-huh.
of the guys says, he had on a logo shirt for Quaker Ridge, and he says, well, these guys aren't members, so they can't help you. But tell you what, um, I think he said, here's my card, or give me your number, and and I'll call you later. My name's Mario Guerrera. So when I got on the ferry,
Uh-huh.
I Googled that name, Mario Guerrera. Turns out he was the head pro of the club.
Oh, wow.
And
Wow.
so, and sure enough, he calls me that night. And he says, so what's your story? He says, I was really impressed with the way you handle yourself and so on and so forth. So tell me, what's your story? And I said, well, I grew up in poverty here in the US. I grew up in poverty,
Yeah.
became the first person in my family to graduate from high school.
Mm-hmm.
And then went off to college, got an engineering degree, went to work for Exxon upon graduating, and spent my entire career there,
Uh-huh.
just retired. And my goal for my first year retirement is to play the top 100 courses in the country. And I need to get on the Quaker Ridge. And
Uh-huh.
he says, well, then he tells me his background. His family was from Cuba. They were Cuban refugees who escaped Castro.
Wow.
And so there was sort of this connection between us. We were like kindred spirits.
Yeah.
And he says, I want to help you. He says, we don't normally allow, this was in May.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like they're just opening the club. It's prime season in New York. He
Sounds
says,
book.
this
Right.
time of year, we don't allow unaccompanied play.
Right.
But he said, but tonight, I'm going to call the president of the club and the general manager of the club and get them to make an exception so that I can host you on Saturday. I had told him that the only day I had available was Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
And sure enough, he arranged for it. So just another example of a serendipitous meeting. And that's how I got onto these courses, just meeting and talking with people and them helping. That was like the first time I'd ask someone for help. The other times it was I would just talk about what I was doing and they would volunteer to help.
Mm.
But so those were some of a couple of the neat encounters, or interesting and fun encounters with people that were just kind and gracious.
Yeah. So one thing I'm hearing, like I'm picking up, is that you're pretty good with names. So like, were you writing, like, I guess, like who you would meet um in association with
I
the
did.
course? Ah,
I
okay.
did.
Okay.
I did. I wrote, but I don't have any notes here. I remember all the names of everybody I met.
Wow.
Uh, all the caddies I had, the people I played with, the people that helped me, people I met along the way. I
Yeah.
used to have a very, very good memory, but I'm getting older now, and that ability to remember everything is fading. One of the things that helped me, so
Uh,
um, is I think the ability to connect with people, with strangers, and
mm,
connect. through something common, either a common place,
Uh-huh.
a common person, or a common experience. And I traveled the country a lot in my
Yeah.
younger days, and I tried to remember every place I'd ever been
Mm-hmm.
and something interesting about that place, so that when I meet people, I could talk to them about that place. At one point, I remembered almost every person I'd ever met in my life and
Wow.
something interesting about them.
Uh-huh.
Uh, and so, another example, the guy, John Sokol, who helped me
Yeah.
with the courses in Columbus, one of the guys that he arranged to host me was a guy named Kevin at uh, the golf club. So I arrived at the golf club that Saturday morning, that Sunday morning,
Mm-hmm.
and when I saw Kevin, um, he looked familiar. And uh, one of the few black guys actually that hosted me throughout the 100 courses, but this
Uh-huh.
tall, handsome, good-looking black guy, he
Uh-huh.
looked familiar. And then he told me that he was a West Point grad. So he had that clean shaven,
Mm.
short haircut, uh, just that look. And I thought,
Yeah.
well, maybe I think I know him or remember him because he just has that military black male military officer look.
Yeah.
So we
Uh-huh.
played the round with two other guys, and including with two other guys. And at the end, so at every club, I would buy a cap and a ball marker, a
Yeah.
dollar
Yeah.
sign ball marker.
Right.
Uh, but after we finished the round, I needed to rush over across town from where the golf club is
Mm.
to where Murfield Village is. As I played the golf club in the morning, and I was playing Murfield Village with John,
Mm-hmm.
in the afternoon.
Mm.
So I called an Uber and left.
Yeah.
Then when I got to Murfield Village, and I went to pull out my credit card so I could buy a hat and a ball mark,
Walmart. Yeah.
and I didn't have my credit card. So I said to John, I must have left it at the golf club when I got my hat and ball mark there. So
Mm-hmm.
he called Kevin. He
Mm-hmm.
called Kevin and said Jimmie left his credit card at the club. And Kevin said, "Oh, great." He's like, "Why would he say great?" He said, "Because I wanted to invite Jimmie over for dinner tonight so that he could meet my wife and kids."
Uh-huh.
And he said, "This will be perfect. I'll go back by the club. I'll pick up his credit card. After you guys finish your round, he can come out to New Albany, which is where the golf club is,
Yeah.
and we'll host him for dinner."
Mm.
So when I get to Kevin's house that night, he and his wife answered the door.
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as I see them together, I said, "I've met you guys before." I said, "I've met you before." So
Uh-huh.
Kevin's now thinking that I'm only talking about his wife. And he's thinking, this guy knows my wife. But when I say you, I
Both
meant
of them.
you as in plural.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so we started to talk, find out where they went to school, and I started connecting the dots. Within 5 minutes, I said, there it is. I said, 20 years ago, Rocky Mountain, North Carolina, the two of you got out of a taxi in front of the church where Troy Stovall and Sonia were getting married. Erica, that's my wife, we were
Uh-huh.
standing outside the church, getting ready to go in. You guys get out of the taxi. We talk to you, walk into the church with you. And then later that evening after the wedding, we went to Applebee's for dinner. And you guys are also at that Applebee's.
Wow.
And they were and so, yes. And they said, wow, yes, we were at the wedding, and that was 20 years ago. And now we've been married ourselves for 20 years because our wedding was not long after that. And so just like I meet this guy in Pennsylvania
Yeah.
that arranges for a guy in Ohio to host me at a club in Ohio. It turns out that 20 years ago, I had met this guy and his wife at a wedding in North Carolina.
Wow, that's crazy.
So you're talking about remembering,
Yeah.
uh, but I'm losing that. I'm losing that ability to remember. I can remember people more clearly from 20 years ago than I can from yesterday. but but yeah,
So I think it
and that
was,
helps. I mean, the
yeah,
meeting people and remembering people and being able to make connections
yeah.
with people made it. Um, I think that helped as I met strangers and found connections,
Hmm.
and that helped with getting invitations to all these different clubs.
So
So it's a lot about networking and being able to connect with people. And like I
yeah.
said, being able to connect with people, and we connect through common places, common people, common experiences.
Hmm. I don't know if you've ever read is it, I think it's either Outliers or Blink by Malcolm Gladwell.
I
And
read Outliers and I have Blink. I actually have I'm like three Malcolm Gladwell books behind. But
yeah, yeah, it was it Outliers that spoke about there was a guy, he had like about 800 contacts in his phone, and he was able to remember every one and tell a story.
um, I I don't remember that from Outliers. It could have been. I don't remember it though. I don't
Okay, I
remember.
think it
I don't
might have been
remember that.
Blink.
I don't remember that. I don't remember that story. But yeah, so the art of remembering uh, is to come up with something about each person you meet that's interesting. And
Hmm.
it's that interesting thing that you remember, and then that triggers the recognition.
Mm.
Same thing about places. Like I've traveled to all but one state in the US.
Uh-huh.
And I've only traveled to the states uh, that I had a purpose to travel to.
Mm.
So the one state I've not been to is North Dakota, and that's only because I haven't had a reason to go to North Dakota. And
Mm.
I'm not just going to go up to North Dakota so I can say I've been to all 50 states. It's not golf. So
Yeah.
I've not had a reason to go to North
Yeah.
Dakota.
Uh,
But uh, small towns. And so when I'd meet people and they say they're from, uh, they're from some city. And
yeah.
I'd ask them, are you from the city, from that city, or are you from, and I'll start naming these small towns around that city. And then
Yeah.
they'll admit that they're from that small town. And how did you
Uh-huh.
know that town? And I tell them something about that town. And, so that's
Yeah.
how you connect.
Ah, it kind of makes sense because the first time we spoke, you mentioned some people, and I was like, yeah. And okay, so
Yeah.
it was also like connecting dots. Okay,
Yeah.
that makes sense. So like first, so do you have any plans to write a book?
So I am. I'm working on a book.
Okay.
I'm in the midst of writing that book uh, now. And
Uh-huh.
I talk about the people I met, the courses, but I write. The book is really it focuses on. It tells my life story.
Mm-hmm. Mm,
It tells my life story
yeah.
uh, uh, against a backdrop of playing the top 100 courses in the country. So when I'm on a course, so sort of like uh, when I was at Augusta National, standing on that first tee,
Yeah.
and I'm standing there around this sort of everything is perfect,
Mm,
and I sort of think about. I go back to my childhood
mm,
where I'm playing baseball with a stick and a doll's head on
mm,
these dusty roads in between these shacks uh, in the shadows of a sawmill there in East Texas.
mm,
It's just such a contrast to me that, as I said earlier, this kid who was born into a world that lacked almost everything was now standing in this world that lacked almost nothing.
Mm.
And so I talk at each course, something triggers something from my life. I reflect back on certain aspects of my life, and I tell those stories interspersed throughout the book as I talk about the courses and tell the stories of the people that I met along the way, try to give a good feel for what the course is like, and
Yeah.
try to give a sense of what it was like growing up in America uh, during times of racial strife, growing up in poverty during times of racial strife.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it was, so, and I talk about some of the challenges to overcome, like for instance, getting paddled in school because I was poor.
Really?
And yeah, so like now, just the idea of a kid getting paddled in school is it doesn't matter for what
Right.
is
Right.
there.
Yeah.
But when I was in school,
Yeah.
in gym, you had to suit out. You had to suit out in white shorts and white t-shirt.
Uh-huh.
We were too poor to afford white shorts and white t-shirts.
Mm.
So I couldn't suit out. You had to have specific shorts and t-shirts that you purchased from the store there in town.
Yeah.
We couldn't afford that. So I couldn't suit out in gym. And because I couldn't suit out in gym, every day the PE teacher, I went into his office, placed my hands on the desk, and he swatted me with a paddle.
Uh,
And so I talk about those types of
wow.
things that I experienced growing up in America and how much of a challenge it was, and that circumstances don't define what we do in life,
Mm-hmm.
what we achieve in life. They define what we have to deal with to achieve the things that we achieve in life.
Oh,
And throughout my life growing up, there were a lot of challenges. I mean, growing up poor, um, it's it's really too about trying to find a world in which I fit.
mm. Right.
Um, and that's part of the challenge too. Like for us as black men,
Yeah.
um, growing up, and you're sitting in fifth grade or sixth grade, eighth grade, whatever, and you're reading these stories, or maybe in high school and you're reading about the Great Gatsby in the Roaring '20s.
Yeah.
There are no black people.
Right.
Doesn't talk about us.
Right.
You read history was written in this country that doesn't really talk a lot about us.
Right.
And if it does, it's in sort of it talks very little and puts
More
us in
like
a negative light.
servitude. Yeah.
It's like it's
Position.
like it's like the history is written as if we are voiceless extras in a movie
Mm-hmm.
that we're never intended to see because we weren't supposed to learn to read.
Mm.
So
Mm-hmm.
what was written in history, what was written in literature, didn't have to take us into account
Mm-hmm.
because we weren't supposed to learn to read. And so, sort of going through life, trying to connect through common people, places, and things,
Yeah.
it's hard to find those things in the world that where wasn't really designed for us, so we don't fit. So I talk about those things too, and those struggles that I had trying to find my place, trying to find a place where I felt I belonged.
Right.
So that I cover that in the book also.
Wow.
So it's a book told against the backdrop of golf,
Uh-huh.
but it's really not about so much the golf as it is about confronting challenges and overcoming challenges
Uh-huh.
in life.
Wow. That man. That's really powerful. So, oh man, uh, wow. So in terms of golf, um, what was like the lowest round that you scored?
So I'll tell you the lowest round,
Uh-huh.
and then because I'm going to tell you the lowest round, to put it in proper perspective so
Yeah.
that people don't get the wrong understanding,
Uh-huh.
I'm going to also tell you about my highest round. So
Okay. Uh,
my lowest round was a 76
mm-hmm.
at Monterey Peninsula,
Mm-hmm.
um, on the Shores course, and it opens with a par five, and I made a double bogey on the first hole, and then pretty much after that it was birdies and pars, but
Mm-hmm.
a few bogeys here and there, but mostly birdies and pars. But
Uh,
it was just one of those rounds. I flew out to California,
yeah.
um, early that morning,
Mm-hmm.
left Atlanta early that morning, flew to San Francisco, jumped in a rent a car, drove down to Monterey, went to the club, and the driving range was when I got there. All I could do is putt. So I putt, and I was playing by myself with a caddy.
Uh-huh.
Uh, and I hit my first ball to the left, uh, went into the rough to the left, and the caddy says, you should hit a second ball because you didn't get to warm up.
Mm-hmm.
Second ball was just as bad as the first. So I just played the first ball anyway,
Uh-huh.
and double bogeyed the hole. And then, like I said, after that, I sort of took off. I really love the course. It's beautiful. The scenery, you could see Cypress Point from the Shores course at Monterey Peninsula. You're along the coast. It's just a beautiful course. But I was in a zone. I
Uh-huh.
didn't have to think. I didn't have to think. I was just swinging, and the ball was going to the right place. I mean, it
Mm,
was just one of those days.
yeah.
Now, on the other end of the spectrum, there's a course in West Virginia. I'm now a member of the course.
Uh,
It's the hardest course in the top 100
wait,
in
harder than
terms of the rank.
Bethpage?
It's harder than Bethpage. Yeah, there are several courses harder than Bethpage.
Wow.
Bethpage, from the tips, I didn't play Bethpage from the tips. Some of the
Uh-huh.
tips, it may be really hard. But Bethpage, if you can avoid the fescue and the deep bunkers, it's not as hard. The fescue and deep bunkers make it really, really hard. And
Yeah.
for some reason, when I played Bethpage, I was able to almost on almost all holes avoid the fescue. So I
Mm,
actually played pretty well at Bethpage. But this course in West Virginia is called Pikewood National.
uh-huh.
It has two sets of tees. The forward tees
Mm-hmm.
are 7,100 yards. The back tees are 7,600. So that's your choice. You can play 7,100 or 7,600.
Wow.
We played 7,100. The
Uh-huh.
rating, the rating is like 76, 75.7 or something, almost 76
Wow.
is the rating. The slope is a 151. The max slope is 155.
Mm.
The back tees, they have a 155, the highest rating, the highest slope you can have. The fairways are narrow, bordered by deep, thick Kentucky bluegrass for the rough. You can't hit out of the rough. You have to pitch out. There aren't a lot of bunkers, but there doesn't need to be a lot of bunkers. But the course is beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
It's on a mountain, uh, and Victoria Peak, and the greens are like infinity pools that just fall off into heaven.
Mm-hmm.
The views are spectacular. So you don't mind that it's really, really hard and you're going to get beat up. You just enjoy the walk.
Uh-huh.
And it's a tough walk, though, in terms of you going up and down elevation changes, and it's all walking,
Mm-hmm.
no carts. Uh, and so my caddy that morning asked me, he says, so what was your highest score? And at the time, it had been a 95. I
Uh-huh.
said a 95. He says, you're going to shoot 105. He says, on this course, you usually shoot about 10 strokes above the worst round you've had. And sure enough, guess what I shot?
105.
105. And people go, you're like 11, 12 handicap. Uh, now I'm below 10, but then it was like 11 or 12 handicap.
Yeah.
How did you shoot a 105? And I said, I missed the putt for 104. I missed my but yeah, it's hard. So that's my best course, 76 at Monterey Peninsula, the Shores course, and a 105 at Pikewood was my worst score.
Wow. Wow. that sounds real tough. So
No, I
um
told
mhm,
so I um in terms of overall though, I often get asked, what was your favorite course?
uh-huh.
And I tell people it's 100 courses, so it's hard to pick. And they're the top 100. There are 20,000 courses in the country.
Yeah.
1% of that is 200. 100 is a half of a percent.
Right.
So you're trying to differentiate between. It's hard, and each course is somewhat different. And so I say it's like steak, ordering a steak.
Right.
To some people, the best steak is one that's rare. To others,
Mhm.
it's medium. To others, it's well or medium well.
Mhm.
And some people like filet mignon. Some people like ribeyes. Some people like T-bones. So
Yeah.
they're all, for the right person, they're all the best.
Mm.
So it's hard to pick one course as my favorite, but I picked five in no certain order, but for
Which
different reasons. Like
okay.
we talked about Augusta National,
Yeah.
and that's for just it's the experience of being at Augusta National. It's the ambiance, it's the history, it's the pristine nature, the manicured everything, where everything's perfect.
Mhm.
Um, Pine Valley, because it's hard, it's a challenge. If you want to challenge your golf game, play Pine Valley.
Uh-huh.
There's when you're standing on the tee, it doesn't look like you have a lot of room. You actually have more room than you can use because it's a target golf course. You have to hit to a certain spot to be
Right.
able to get to the green. And
Right.
then on the way to your shot to the green, your approach shot, there's no place to miss on most holes. You got to hit to the right spots.
Uh-huh.
But it's just every aspect of your game is tested. Marion, because
Mhm.
of its traditions,
Mhm.
great traditions at Marion. The first tee is right next to the veranda where they serve meals, and we teed off right at uh, around lunchtime. I told you we had lunch and then we went to tee off,
Yeah.
and so people are sitting there eating, and you hear all the noise and talking and the clanging of spoons and forks and knives against the plates, and you
Yeah.
address the ball, and it goes silent, which is letting you know that everybody is watching you.
Mhm.
So
Talk
you got
about
and
first
then,
Steve Jennings,
yes,
like
on the 18th hole,
uh-huh.
So Marion is known for the 18th hole is known for the fact that Ben Hogan, after his automobile accident,
Um,
playing in the championship,
yeah.
uh, he he hit his drive to the middle of the fairway, then hit a 1-iron uh, to the green.
Yeah.
My drive landed right next to the plaque that marks the spot he hit his drive to.
Oh
So I
wow.
hit my approach shot from the exact spot where Hogan hit his famous 1-iron, but I hit a 3 hybrid, and
Uh-huh.
he hit I missed the green. There's a bunker
Uh-huh.
off the front right. My ball was to the right of that bunker, and I pitched over the bunker and one putted for par. So I did make par, but I missed the green.
Uh-huh.
But the traditions at Marion make it special. And then there's Cypress Point. I believe if Cypress Point had a halfway decent 18th hole, the 18th
Mhm.
hole seemed like it was just an afterthought and crammed in to get 18 holes because golf courses don't have 17. But
uh,
if the 18th hole was a halfway decent hole, I think Cypress would be the number one golf course in the world. I would have been able to pick a number one course, because everything about the course, the views, every hole is different. Every hole can be played a lot of different ways. So it's just, it's a great golf venue with great vistas. And then the last of the 5 is Fisher's Island. It's off the coast. It's in Long Island Sound, between the east end of Long Island and Connecticut. And to get there, unless you're very wealthy and can do like some of the folks did the day I was there, and that is take the helicopter off your yacht and land at the helicopter pad. Unless you're one of those guys, you take a ferry. You take a ferry from New London, Connecticut to the island. And it's this charming island. And the course, my favorite designer is Seth Rayner. And it's, you got all this Seth Rayner design template holes in this charming setting with cottages, a lighthouse, the sound, greens that sort of fall off, appear that they fall off into the sound. So it's just a beautiful setting with a great course. So those are the 5: Augusta National, Marion, Pine Valley, Cypress Point, and Fisher's Island were my.
All right. What were you overrated?
Overrated? Well, so this is going to probably surprise people. One of the overrated courses to me was Pebble Beach. I expected more. Now, don't get me wrong. Pebble Beach has 7 unparalleled holes that can't be beat. But the rest of the holes are unremarkable. And when I'm playing an iconic course, I want it to feel like it's iconic on the very first hole. The very first hole at Pebble Beach could be found at a municipal park anywhere in the country. There's nothing special about it at all. You're teeing off between condos. But once you get past the hedges on the 4th hole and the ocean is off to the right, and you just go through a series of holes. And I think one of the most scariest holes in golf is the 6th hole, the par 5 up the hill with the coastline on the right. The drive is scary. The drive is scary because, especially if your miss is a slice like mine, you're worried about slicing it off into the water. But the really scary shot is the 2nd shot, where you're hitting uphill over the edge of the water, the edge of the beach. That's a long way down below.
That's where the tree is, right?
Well, you got a tree. Well, so at Pebble, there's some trees along the right, but there's the famous tree is at Cypress Point, that cypress tree. But Pebble, you have trees, but you also, there are trees off to the right along the coast there. But your 2nd shot, it's an uphill shot. You got to go over the corner sort of the water or the beach, hitting uphill. It's a scary shot. I mean, it puts fear in your heart. But there's spectacular holes on Pebble, but I expected more for the inland holes. The holes along the water can't be beat. And then another one that I didn't like. I liked Pebble. I was just disappointed that it didn't feel more iconic on the first tee. And that the other holes that aren't along the water aren't all that spectacular. But Black Wolf Run. So it's at Kohler. Whistling Straits is there, and I love Whistling Straits. But the other top 100 course there in Kohler is a course called Black Wolf Run, also designed by Pete Dye. And for a resort course, it's just too hard for a resort course. Like there's one hole, a par 3, the 13th hole, the river, the Sheboygan River is running alongside, running through the course. And I think that's the Sheboygan too, but the river's to the right. The green is behind tall trees to the left. You can't even see the green from the tee box. To get to the green, and the green is 210 yards away. So you have to hit a high draw over the trees to reach the green. Not many amateurs have that shot.
Right, right.
So, but I just didn't. I that course and I didn't bond.
Uh-huh.
But now one of the most underrated courses to me was Somerset Hills.
Mm.
It's a Tillinghast design. The second hole is a Redan, a template hole. It's a Redan, and it's probably to me the best Redan hole in golf.
Uh-huh.
It the bunkering, the shape of the hole. Redans slope right to left.
Uh-huh.
Par three, they're par threes with greens that slope right to left and bunkers in the front that you, on the left that you have to carry, but it slopes right to left. And just the contour of the shape green, the bunkers, the bunkering, it's a great par three. And I think of all the Redans I've played, it's the best Redan.
Oh.
But it was great. It was ranked in like 60 something, 63, 64 or something like that. And to me, it's definitely a top 50, if not a top 40. Yeah.
What you have the book coming up. Um any other plans golf wise?
Well, so I've done, um, you traveling around the country,
Mm-hmm.
playing these courses, uh, gave, just in seeing sort of interacting with people. Um, I have this, I mentioned that we have a house in Kiowa,
Mm-hmm.
on Kiowa Island in South Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
We have a statue of Charlie Sifford as a
Mm-hmm.
boy swinging a club.
Yeah.
Um, and Charlie was the first person, the first black to play to play in a PGA Tour event.
Right.
PGA Tour used to have a
Right only clause.
requirement that uh, you be over 18 and you be white.
Yeah.
You be a male over 18 that's white to play on the PGA Tour. And so um, he was able to uh, get through all that with the help of a guy that became the Attorney General in California that sort of pushed the issue.
Mm-hmm.
And he got on the tour.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and he worked really hard to make golf a more inclusive sport. So with that statue of him there on my porch and knowing his history, and then what I saw as I traveled around, not seeing a whole lot of people that look like us at these clubs, not because they're unwelcome or anything anymore, they just aren't there.
Mm-hmm.
I made a commitment to really work hard through the end of my days to help grow the game, make golf a more inclusive game. So there are some things that I'm doing, working with a guy, Maurice Allen, who's a long drive champion,
Yeah.
um, working with Maurice and his foundation
Uh-huh.
to uh, uh, help support young black male and female golfers trying to make it on the Corn Ferry and PGA Tour and the Symetra and LPGA Tour.
Mm-hmm.
So we're working on that together. I'm working. Uh, I helped a guy who had started this activity of taking soldiers suffering from PTSD
Mm.
to Scotland to teach them to become caddies,
Uh-huh.
and I helped him turn that into a nonprofit organization, and I serve on the board for that
Mm.
organization. Um, that something people don't know is that there were probably uh, about 4,500 to 5,000 soldiers that have died in battle since 9/11.
Wow.
That many are killing themselves every 8 to 9 months now.
Wow.
Suicide is a huge problem.
Uh-huh.
And so we take veterans that are suffering from PTSD and try to help them regain their sense of belonging and sense of purpose through learning to become a caddy. Um, so that's one. Also looking at some new things like working with some PGA of America pros at clubs to increase the number of Blacks on the business side of golf. When I traveled to these top 100 clubs, I saw only 3 PGA professionals, and only one was at a private club. So there were 2, Norman and Hebert at Pebble Beach, and then Burley Stamps at Riviera. Burley was the only one at a private club that I saw. All 3 were in California. You know, as I said, 2 at Pebble and 1 at Riviera.
Yeah.
So helping to increase the number of PGA professionals that are of African American descent. So those are some of the things I'm working on. And I'm working on playing the top 100 courses in the world. I'm well on my way. COVID interrupted me. I've got probably 33 or so left to play, and I had several planned. I have several planned for this year, and I only got 3 in this year. I played before COVID hit. I played Murfield Village in Scotland. I played the Teeth of the Dog in Teeth of the Dog in the Dominican Republic, and then North Berwick, which is also in Scotland. So 2 in Scotland and 1 in the Dominican Republic.
Wow. So you're also trying to accomplish that within a year?
No, I gave myself 4 years to do that, but COVID has wiped out a whole year. So I'm gonna have to up my game to get it done in that 4-year time frame, because I've lost a year. So hopefully we can start traveling internationally again this summer.
True.
So that was part of that too, Kelly, is that with retirement, I knew too many people who retired and then didn't live long. So I think it's important for people who decide to retire that before you retire, you have a plan, and that your plan includes something new. Because some people figure they will be able to do a lot of the things they were doing before and didn't have time to do them as much as they wanted to. But those things, when you can do them as much as you want to, like golf, and you can play as much as you want to, it loses some of its luster, because the thing that made it part of what made it so great before is the scarcity.
Right.
So I tell people, you need to figure out a way to do something different, something new, add something new to your life that holds your interest. Also, we're always going to be relevant to our family. We're also going to find relevance in our faith.
Yeah.
But those things are always there. Work, we all find relevance in our work too. And once you decide to retire, you need to find something else totally new to create a new sense of relevance for yourself. And so this playing the top 100, while I played golf before, playing the top 100 courses opened up so many new doors, and this new sense of I have a mission now, a totally new mission as a result of doing it. I've created sort of this new relevance, new sense of relevance, new sense of mattering for something I didn't matter for before.
And it's like, even when you like, I mean, I'm like 33, right? But like looking just
half my age.
So when you go through life, right? You know, you start off in school. School takes a majority of your time, and then once you come out of school, you start working, right? And it's like, you know, retirement. Like, I mean, I haven't experienced it yet, but yeah, like the amount of time that you either have had towards school or towards working, like it's like, yeah, what do you do next? You know?
Yeah. Yeah. So the point I think you're making too, Kelly,
Uh-huh.
is that every stage of your life,
Hmm.
there's a goal that's built in.
Hmm.
The first one that you haven't decided upon necessarily. I did because it wasn't common back during the community I grew up in and the time that I grew up in it.
Hmm.
But um, the first goal is graduating from high school. I mean, it's sort of like that's your purpose, that's your job,
Yeah.
that's what you're striving for.
Uh-huh.
Then it's if you choose to go to college, it's that you still have another goal that's built in for you. You know what your purpose is to get through college,
Yeah.
um, and then you have a career, and
Hmm.
you're trying to do very well in your career, build the reputation for the work that you do, uh, build wealth. It's
Hmm.
all there's something that's really clear. That's a life type, a key milestone in life that you're striving to achieve. Build a family, all those types of things.
Hmm.
But then when you're through with work, there's no roadmap anymore that's laid out for you.
Hmm.
You have to now completely create your own. When you were required to go to school, you're sort of required to work because you need
Right.
money.
Right. Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
You required, there were all these things that you sort of treated as requirements that you knew you needed to get done.
Uh-huh.
Now, in retirement, you've done all those things.
Hmm.
And now it's whatever you want to do. But it's not sitting around all day or going play golf every day all day. It's that there's got to be more. And you get to decide what that more is.
Hmm. Right.
And the way I look at it too, Kelly, is that success
Uh-huh.
is not about what you achieve. Success is leveraging what you have achieved to make a contribution.
To those
Turning,
after.
yeah, turning your achievements, leveraging your achievements
Hmm.
into some type of contribution, um, that becomes sort of your legacy.
Hmm.
Not what did you achieve, what did you contribute?
Hmm. Right.
What did you do to make the world a better place, not only for the ones you love that are important to you, but for as many others as you possibly could? And we go through life, Kelly, and
Uh-huh.
like I said, we didn't get a lot into my background, but there was a lot of struggle.
Uh-huh.
And just like golf, just
Uh-huh.
like golf,
Yeah.
life is hard. Life is hard. It's already hard enough just by its own nature that
Hmm.
you don't need other people making it hard. It's like when you're playing golf, nobody needs to make it harder for you than it
Yeah.
already. It's like
Yeah.
that course. It's like that course I was telling you about,
Uh.
Black Wolf Run.
Yeah.
I just made it much more harder than it needed to be. Golf is already hard. You don't have to do all
Right.
these crazy things to the course to make it even harder. Life is the same way.
Yeah.
We shouldn't be making other people's lives harder. It's hard enough already.
Right.
And so the more we can do to take our success, leverage our success, and make life easier for others, I think the better. That's our contribution.
Hmm.
That's what I think is the measure of the value of our lives, is not what we achieve, but what we contribute.
Hmm. Wow. Yeah. 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 True. It's true. Because yeah, as you continue to contribute, you're making it easier for those like after you.
You're making it easier for others.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
Uh,
let's let's say if we can't go through life
Uh-huh.
doing as much as we can to make that journey through life for those that follow us easier than it was for us.
Mm, right.
Because they'll find their own challenges, the challenges will find them. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
so the more we can eliminate for others, the
Yeah.
more we can blaze a trail or clear the path for others, the less of the things that we face, they will have to face. They'll face challenges because, like I said, life is full of challenges.
Cool.
And I guess one of my other sayings, Kelly, is that if you want to understand the measure of a person that you are,
Mm-hmm.
you find it at the intersection of adversity and aspirations. When your greatest hopes and dreams
Mm-hmm.
come up against your biggest challenges, what do? Do you dig deep, find a way, make a way, show determination, perseverance, and get through it?
Mm-hmm.
Or do you quit?
Mm-hmm.
That's what determines your path in life. There's all sorts of stuff going on, but at the end of the day, I think it's how you deal with that stuff
Right.
that determines the measure of your life.
Right. Right.
When you get, well, like I said, as you get to a point to where it's like when I'm sitting there, when I was playing the top 100 courses,
Right.
and uh, I was my host at Shinnecock
Mm-hmm.
canceled at sort of the last minute, and Shinnecock was really hard to find a host for because they were playing the U.S. Open, and because the U.S. Open was there, they restricted the number of guests their members could bring. And
Uh-huh.
when the guy who was going to host me had to cancel at the last minute, um, trying to find someone else who still had a slot they could use that would be willing to use it for a stranger that close to the open was like almost impossible
Yeah.
because if they have a slot, they've been saving it for someone that they know, and they don't have a free slot to just give to some
Right.
stranger by hosting some stranger. But when I got to that point, it was like, am I going to make it? Am I going to get stuck at 99 because I can't find a new host for Shinnecock? And
Mm,
it's like, so do you just give up? Or do you just leave no stone unturned?
mm,
Go every direction you can. And that's the path I took, was just going every direction I could. And I got a host. And and I played Shinnecock, but it's with everything at some point in time when you have goals, there's going to be a big obstacle. And the people that succeed at reaching their goals are the people that that gut check, that dig deep
mm-hmm.
and and don't give up.
Mm,
That's what I think the difference between people who reach their goals and people who don't is simply giving up versus never giving up.
right. Wow. Wow. You're speaking like life right now. You know what I mean? That's real. That's definitely real. But wow,
Yeah.
man. So yeah, this was definitely, like great talk